Hello and welcome to Deborah Hanson Read with me. Today we're going to review chapter 24 and chapter 25 of Chains by Laurie Halse Anderson. So these are basically just in a nutshell summaries of what happened in the chapter. If you want to hear the full chapter, just if you have a look at my channel, you'll see that I read the entire chapter word for word with some commentaries as I go along. And there's also a summary at the end of those videos as well. But these are just like basically quick summaries. You have a test, you have a quiz, you have a book talk, whatever you need, you can have this just a quick like few minutes where you can review the chapter after you've read it. Of course, this doesn't replace reading the chapter. You have to read the chapter because I'm just covering some of the basic points here. So we're going to start with chapter 24. So here I put the notes on the screen so that if you do have to take some notes, you've got them for you and you can just follow along. So after the nightmare of her branding is over, Isabel wakes up in this like state of hallucination. She's lying in a bed, a really comfy bed, but her visions of her parents and Ruth and Curzon, you can just imagine the trauma that this poor little girl has gone through. So she wakes up and she's like looking around. She doesn't know where she is. Is she dreaming? Is she dead? What is going on? She sees little pretty curtains. She doesn't know where she is, but for some reason, she knows that she's safe. And then Lady Seymour walks in and gives her some water. So Lady Seymour tells Isabel that she's been staying with her since the branding. She explains that Curzon came to her and asked for help because Isabel was in a really bad state and she needed help. So really without Curzon and Lady Seymour's intervention, she probably would have remained in the jail, in the stocks as they call it, and probably died because of her injuries and everything. So really Lady Seymour and Curzon saved her life at this point. So Lady Seymour's been trying to find out where Ruth is, but of course, Madame Lockton won't tell her where she is because we know what Madame Lockton's like. Her character is the evil person in this book. Isabel wonders if she now works for Lady Seymour, but then she unfortunately learns that no, she's just there to recuperate. And then once she feels better, she has to go back to the Locktons' house, which of course does not make her so happy, right? So pulled out some quotes that you can use, like I said, in a book talk or an essay or anything like that. The spark kindled on my cheek, flared and spread through my entire body, first my eyes, then hair, then down to my limbs, until even my toes and fingers were aflame. Great quote if you have to talk about imagery, right? Because this is very descriptive language, and you can almost imagine all of the words on the page, like you can almost see them come to life. That's on page 149. Again, that's in my book, but if you have any book that you have, it will be close, and we know obviously it's in chapter 24. Strangest of all was the hive of bees that has taken up residence inside of me. They swarmed under my skin and gave off a peculiar vibration. The buzzing echoed in my brain pan and crowded my thoughts. The fire in me burned on and on. I just love the way Laurie Halse Anderson writes. I mean, everything she writes metaphorically and visually and imagery wise. I mean, it's amazing. Look at this. I mean, the swarm, she often refers to the bees, right? The buzzing of the bees in her brain, or the buzzing here giving off the vibration under her skin. All of that, just the way that she explains things is really visual. The bees threatened to overtake my mind again, their wings beating quickly. I took another drink of water. I remember some. The rest is a jumble, ma'am. So she's just thinking about what happened, right? She pretty much blacked out. It was a very traumatic event. And this is where the bees are going, right? They're just the wings beating again. It's that vibration. It's that buzzing in her brain, that feeling. It's a metaphor, right? I entered the side gate to the garden, entered and closed it behind me. I heard the knocker booming under Lady Seymour's hand as I walked slowly to the back door. So this is where she has to go back to the Locktons, and it's almost like basically walking death row, really, honestly. Like she is so unhappy about returning to the Locktons, but she knows she has to. The sound of the knocker booming under her hand. I mean, even that is just like the sound of it is just awful. That's the end of part 1 of the book. So then we go into part 2, which we'll begin with chapter 25. And then we'll go a little review here of chapter 25. Unfortunately, Isabel must return to the Locktons' home, and it is not pleasant for Isabel. Can you imagine? After everything she's been through, after everything Madame Locktons put her through, now she's got to go work for her again. Really, really unfair. Curzon really wants to talk to Isabel, but Isabel's very angry that Colonel Reagan didn't help her when she needed him the most. She blames Curzon a little bit for this, right? Because he got her into this mess, and then Colonel Reagan totally just let her down when she really needed him. She feels betrayed by everyone who promised to help her, Curzon, Colonel Reagan, anybody, right? It's just sort of like the whole world is against Isabel. Isabel does finally talk to Curzon, and he apologizes to her, and he tells her not to give up hope. Isabel has had enough of empty promises and just basically sends him on his way. So really, honestly, she's had enough. People have been promising her things, and here she is, branded, gone through traumatic event, lost her sister. She's alone. I mean, she's gone through so much, this young girl who we are assuming is around 12, 13 years old, right? I mean, things that she's gone through is just unbelievable. So yeah, great. Curzon apologized, but he got her in this mess. And now she feels like she has to get herself out of this. Here's some good quotes. So here's this one. Melancholy held me hostage, and the bees built a hive of sadness in my soul. Dark honey filled up inside of me, drowning my thoughts and making it hard to move my eyes and hands. I worked as a puppet, trained to scrub and carry, curtsy and nod. This has got to be one of my favorite quotes in this book. Think about it. You've got metaphor. Melancholy held me hostage. It's comparing the feelings of melancholy to a hostage situation. The bees built a hive of sadness in my soul. Again, the metaphor of bees building hives to describe the accumulation of sadness in this person's soul, in Isabel's soul, right? So we know, we know that Laurie Halse Anderson uses the metaphor of bees quite a bit in this book, but it's the way she uses it that is just absolutely brilliant. Personification also, dark honey filled up inside of me. It personifies the emotion of sadness by attributing it with the ability to produce honey and fill up the person's inner being. That is personification. So if you're looking for these figurative language, if you're looking for things that you need to be pulling out of this chapter, here's two that you can really talk about in depth in a book study or an essay or anything like that. I prayed that Colonel Reagan was there. I prayed he would fall ill and die a terrible death for lying to me and betraying me and letting them break my body. Whenever I heard the words liberty or freedom, I wanted to spit in the dust. So, this is again her anger towards Colonel Reagan. So when she needed him, he just wasn't there for him, to the point where she just wishes he would just die a terrible death. And I don't blame her, really, honestly. He let her down completely. And the whole idea of the Patriots, liberty and freedom. Yeah, right. If you're a slave, liberty and freedom mean nothing, right? She just wants to spit in the dust. There's no liberty or freedom if you're a slave in this time. Has she received any letters from Lockton? The question hit me like a bucket of cold water. You're asking me to spy again? This is a conversation between Isabel and Curzon. Curzon comes to her and literally says, so have we heard from Lockton? What's going on? Can you tell me what's happening? And she's like, are you kidding, dude? My face is branded. I went through torture. My sister was taken away from me. And you want me to spy? Is like hitting her like a bucket of cold water. There's a simile, right? Oh my goodness. Like, how dare you ask me to spy after everything I've been through? And then you are blind. They don't want us free. They just want liberty for themselves. And again, this is Isabel's perspective, the whole idea that the Patriots want liberty and freedom from the British, but it's not for the slaves, it's for themselves. And she's starting to see this very clearly now because she knows Colonel Reagan didn't help her. She knows he wasn't there for her. And she now sees the divide that is really, really blatant. Okay, so that's the end of chapter 24 and 25. Hopefully that helped you a little bit on a quiz or anything that you need, or if you have to do some discussions in class. Thank you so much for listening. Please subscribe to my channel. We're still trying to hit that 1,500. My students keep checking every day. If so, please hit the subscribe button if you like it, and I will keep going. I'll be doing some new books soon as well. So thank you so much. Have a wonderful day, evening, wherever you are in the world.